Welcome to today's deep dive. We're tackling something today that is, frankly, going to completely shatter how you look at the natural world.
Yeah, it really will. It's one of those paradigm-shifting topics.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we're pulling from this brilliant and honestly kind of deeply unsettling piece of writing today called The Invisible Weight of the Gaze.
Such a great piece.
Right. And our mission for this deep dive is to basically prove that when you put on a snorkel mask or, walk into one of those darkened public aquariums, your profound assumption that you're just this invisible, detached observer is entirely false.
Completely false. I mean, it's a deeply comforting framework.
Well,
Right?
totally. We treat nature like it's a television screen.
Exactly. We cast ourselves as the active subjects of the universe, and the natural world is just, well, this passive object placed there for our viewing pleasure.
Like we can just sit on the couch, watch the documentary, totally detached.
Yeah.
Perfectly safe in the belief that the animals on the screen can't look back through the glass.
Right, but biology is quietly dismantling that human arrogance. The central premise of our source material today introduces this illusion of the one-way mirror.
The idea that human attention is just a one-way street.
Yeah, exactly. The text points out that looking is not just a passive intake of light. Looking is an action. It's a biological event that exerts a measurable force on the world you're observing.
Which, completely upends how we interact with nature. So if that one-way mirror is a myth, what actually happens when we break the glass?
Well, the text moves straight into a biological reality to answer this. It focuses on one specific, highly territorial little creature.
The Emperor Cichlid.
Yes, the Emperor Cichlid. It's this vibrant freshwater fish, and it's famous among ethologists for being just fiercely protective of its offspring.
Right, they build those intricate little nests in the substrate to protect their fry. Right.
Exactly. And recent behavioral experiments monitoring these fish have just completely destroyed the idea of the passive human observer. Because researchers didn't just watch the fish, they monitored how the fish watched the researchers.
That is wild. And the text notes that these fish aren't just reacting to, like, a large, shadowy physical shape moving toward their tank.
No, not at all. They actually track what the author calls the exact geometry of human intent.
Okay, the exact geometry of human intent. We need to break that down.
It's critical here. So in the experimental setup, if you, the human observer, approach the aquarium glass but intentionally direct your gaze elsewhere.
Like looking at the filter or something.
Right. Say you're looking at a piece of driftwood in the corner or the filter at the top of the tank. The cichlid maintains a normal baseline resting state.
It's just chilling?
Yeah, its fins are relaxed, its breathing is steady, it knows you're there, but it's calm.
But the exact moment your human eye locks onto the cichlid's eggs, there is an immediate measurable spike in its defensive aggression.
Instantaneous. The biological response is undeniable, and it's incredibly sharp.
Okay, wait. I have to push back on this before we go further.
Sure, go ahead.
Is the fish really registering intent, or is it just reacting to, subtle physical movements?
That's the natural assumption, yeah.
Right, because if I walk up to the glass and wave my hands around, or if I accidentally bump the acrylic, isn't that physical disturbance what's triggering the spike in aggression? Calling it an understanding of intent feels like a massive leap for a tiny fish.
It does, but the researchers had to account for that exact skepticism. So, to rule out simple motion detection, they ran controls where humans would stand perfectly still in front of the tank.
Like completely motionless.
Completely motionless, and they would just shift their eyeballs. No head movement, no hand waving, no tapping the glass.
Are you serious? Just moving their eyes?
Just their eyes. The data isolated the variable purely to the gaze. What's fascinating here is that the fish is absolutely not reacting to a physical disturbance in the water. It is reacting specifically to a silent, invisible line drawn from a human retina directly to its offspring.
Man, that is haunting. An invisible line drawn from a human retina.
It really changes things, doesn't it?
It does. So the fish is doing something way more complex than just operating on a reflex to, swim away from a scary looming shadow.
Exactly, because it shifts the entire conversation from what the fish is doing to how its brain is actually processing this environmental data.
Because for a fish to recognize where your eye is pointing, that requires a lot of brain power.
A staggering feat of visual and neural processing. It requires a biological capacity known in cognitive science as attention attribution.
Attention attribution, meaning the fish's brain is actively calculating the trajectory of my focus and then attributing a motive to me.
Yes, it's modeling the mind of a completely alien species.
But how? How does a brain the size of a pea actually do that? How does it process an alien mammal's gaze?
Well, it comes down to evolutionary geometry. Predatory animals, humans included, tend to have binocular vision, right?
Right, eyes on the front of our heads.
Exactly. Positioned on the front of our heads to provide depth perception for hunting. The cichlid's brain, specifically a region called the optic tectum, is highly evolved to recognize the specific symmetry of forward-facing eyes.
Oh, wow.
But it goes deeper than just spotting the eyes. The fish's neural pathways are calculating the angle of your face, the alignment of your pupils.
Wait, it can see your pupils.
Yes, and mapping that vector across the three-dimensional space of the water to see where that line intersects with its own environment.
So it's essentially doing real-time vector calculus to figure out what I'm looking at.
That's exactly what it's doing.
And then it makes the cognitive leap, like this massive air-breathing mammal outside my world is focusing its forward-facing eyes on my babies. Therefore, this mammal is a threat.
Think about the sheer computational load of that. It instinctively understands what it means for another creature to look. It recognizes that where an observer focuses its eyes, physical action is likely to follow.
You know what it reminds me of? It's like playing high-stakes poker.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. If I'm sitting across the table from you, I'm not just looking at the cards on the table, and I'm not just watching your hands. I'm tracking your eyes to figure out your next move before you even make it.
You're reading their attention.
Exactly. I'm trying to read your attention. And historically, human science assumed we were the only players at the table capable of doing that.
Historically, we assumed we were the only ones who even knew a game was being played.
Wow.
Yeah, the source text dives into this incredible historical critique of how human science has operated for centuries. It uses the term the centralized dictator of human consciousness.
I found that concept so fascinating. It's the ultimate expression of human ego, honestly.
It really is.
It's just this historical assumption that human awareness sits up in an ivory tower, functioning as the singular, centralized dictator of observation, while everything else in nature is just a biological machine.
For hundreds of years, stretching all the way back to philosophers like Descartes, the scientific consensus was that animals were basically automatons.
Just clockwork machines.
Right, running on simple mechanical algorithms. See a shadow, trigger the swimming reflex. Smell a protein, trigger the biting reflex. Cure stimulus and response.
So we placed human consciousness at the absolute pinnacle.
We assumed we were the sole subjects in a world of objects. But this dismantling of human arrogance, the Emperor Cichlid, completely shatters that.
Because if it can trace the vector of my gaze and attribute intent to me, it's not a machine. It's an active, calculating participant.
It proves that we exist within what the author terms a shared ambient ecology. The animals around us aren't just reacting to our physical mass displacing air or water.
They're reading our cognitive state.
They are acutely aware of our awareness.
Okay, so if we accept the mechanics of this cognitive leap, that this tiny fish is actively modeling my mind and tracking my gaze through the glass, we have to look at the real-world consequences.
We do, because this is where the philosophy hits the ecology.
Right, because if they know we're looking, what does our looking actually do to them biologically?
This is the pivot where a fascinating neurobiological discovery crashes headfirst into ecological reality.
My mind immediately goes to the ecotourism industry. We all know the golden rule of ecotourism, right?
Take only pictures, leave only footprints.
Exactly. Take only pictures, leave only footprints. It's the foundational ethic of being a good steward of nature. The idea is that as long as you don't touch the coral or feed the bears or tap on the aquarium glass, you're doing no harm.
Well, the data from the invisible weight of the gaze demonstrates that this premise is biologically impossible.
Which is a tough pill to swallow.
It is, because if a fish's defensive aggression spikes just from the lock of a human eye, then our gaze is absolutely not harmless. Our attention is an actual physical weight.
It's an environmental stressor.
A severe one. When hundreds of tourists snorkel over a shallow reef, or when a crowd presses their faces against the glass of a public aquarium, they might not be physically touching the wildlife,
but they are exerting immense physiological pressure on it.
Exactly. Let's look at the biomonitoring data mentioned in the research. When the cichlid detects that human gaze locking onto its nest, its opercular beat rate, its breathing, doubles.
It literally doubles just from being looked at.
Yes. Its body floods with cortisol and adrenaline. It flares its fins and adopts a rigid defensive posture.
And maintaining that state of high alert burns a tremendous amount of calories.
It's a zero-sum energy game in the wild. If the fish is burning vital calories to maintain a threat posture against our gaze, it isn't foraging for food.
Right, isn't resting.
No, it's depleting the finite energy budget it needs to survive. And chronic exposure to that kind of stress actually suppresses their immune systems.
All of which happens without a single human finger ever touching the water. Just by looking at their young, we force these animals into an exhausting defensive state.
An exhausting allostatic load, yes.
When you break down the biological mechanics of it, it feels profoundly invasive. Like, it's not just observing nature. It feels like the equivalent of showing up uninvited to a stranger's house, pressing your face against their living room window, and intensely staring at their baby.
That's a great way to put it. And if someone did that to you, your heart rate would skyrocket, your cortisol would spike, and you'd be exhausted by the encounter.
You would be metabolically drained.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for us? I mean, how do we even exist in nature without harming it? If my very act of appreciating a fish tank or a tide pool through observation is causing the ecosystem measurable metabolic stress, what's the solution? Are we supposed to just blindfold ourselves and never go outside?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the author's point isn't to advocate for total human withdrawal from the natural world.
Okay, good. That would be depressing.
Right. The takeaway is a necessary shift in our cognitive paradigm. We have to stop pretending that we are standing outside the ecosystem looking in. We have to discard the illusion of the one-way mirror.
We are hopelessly, inextricably woven into the fabric of the ecosystem, even when we think we're just quietly watching it.
Precisely. The text argues that the glass of the aquarium, or the lens of your scuba mask, is not a barrier isolating you from the environment. It is a conductive medium.
It's connecting you.
Yes. What we are seeing from this interaction is the absolute dissolution of the subject-object barrier. As the author puts it, when you look closely at the world looks back.
It maps your intent. It feels the metabolic pressure of your focus. And that realization requires us to completely redefine our understanding of intelligence itself.
Historically, we've defined intelligence as a private, isolated spark locked safely inside a human skull. We treated it like a noun.
Right, a physical property that you possessed independently of your surroundings, like a brain in a vat.
Exactly. But this text suggests that intelligence is actually relational.
Relational, meaning it only exists in connection to other things.
It only exists, or is best understood, in the active connection between entities. Intelligence isn't an isolated spark. It's a dynamic feedback loop. It's the invisible, highly charged gap junction connecting a human retina and a protective fish.
It's an active dialogue, a constant real-time negotiation of boundaries, threat, presence, and awareness between two entirely different species.
And it's happening constantly, even if no words are spoken and no bodies ever touch.
Framing intelligence as a relational verb rather than an isolated noun places a profound responsibility on the observer. When you realize that your attention has mass and biological consequence, you cannot help but move through the world differently.
You are no longer a ghost in the museum. You are a heavy physical presence in their living room.
It definitely changes how I'm going to feel the next time I walk into an aquarium. The hum of the water filters, the blue light, the thick acrylic, none of it is actually separating me from the animals inside. I don't think I can ever look at a fish tank the same way again.
The author leaves us with a deeply humbling question to process. If a tiny freshwater fish, separated from us by millions of years of evolutionary history and a thick pane of acrylic glass, has the neurobiology to feel the weight of our attention, what else in our environment is quietly watching us back?
Oh, wow.
Right. What else in the forest or the ocean or your own backyard is out there, expertly mapping the geometry of your intent, waiting for you to realize that you have never, ever been alone in the room?
That gives me literal chills.
Yeah.
You go your whole life thinking you're the audience sitting in the dark, and suddenly the lights come up and you realize you've been on the stage the entire time.
Exactly. And the rest of the ecosystem has been watching your every move.
It forces a beautiful, if somewhat intimidating, respect for the spaces we inhabit. You are participating in the ecology every time you open your eyes.
Every single time.
So to you listening, the next time you find yourself at the aquarium or out on a hike or just peering into a tide pool at the beach, remember this: you are not invisible. The one-way mirror is a myth.
Your attention has weight.
Yes, your attention has weight, and the natural world is absolutely feeling the metabolic pressure of your gaze.
Be mindful of where you cast that weight.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thread to pull on, something the text hints at, but that we can project into our current reality.
Where are you going with this?
Well, we've spent this entire time talking about our direct, localized presence, right? Our physical eye is locking on to a physical environment.
The immediate, localized way of human binocular vision.
Exactly. But if our direct visual attention exerts an exhausting physical stress on other species, consider the modern world for a second. Think about the technology we use to observe nature today.
Oh, remote observation.
Yes. How might our collective remote attention be impacting the animal kingdom? I'm thinking about the constant 2,147 surveillance of motion-activated trail cameras strapped to trees in the deepest, most remote woods. Or drone footage hovering over herds of migrating animals. Or wildlife live streams pumping high-definition video of bald eagle nests to hundreds of thousands of viewers simultaneously.
That is a staggering extension of the premise. Because if these animals have evolved sophisticated neural pathways to detect the geometry of intent from biological eyes, how are their brains processing the cold, unblinking mechanical gaze of a camera lens?
Right. If a fish burns calories just from a passing glance, what is the allostatic load of a trail camera that never blinks, never sleeps, and never looks away?
That's a terrifying thought.
Are we fundamentally altering the anxiety levels and the evolutionary behavior of the animal kingdom, even when our physical human bodies are thousands of miles away?
It suggests the weight of our gaze might not just be heavy. Through technology, our gaze has become omnipresent.
We have carpeted the natural world in an invisible, stressful tether of constant observation.
It's an incredibly provocative thought to end on.
It's something to seriously mull over the next time you click on a wildlife live stream or scroll through drone footage of a coral reef. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of observation. Take a moment to look at the world a little differently today, and remember, it just might be looking back at you.